45 years ago today, one of the most important civil rights activists of the 20th century and one of the most inspiring figures that ever lived was assassinated. I'm talking about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But the social revolution that he led didn't happen overnight. For years, a civil rights movement had been building in America, one fueled by decades of intolerance and segregation. And it was because of Martin Luther King's steadfast determination that he's most remembered today as a trailblazer for civil liberties. A year after his famous "I Have a Dream" speech that led tens of thousands to march at the nation's capital, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed, which banned racial segregation. And in 1965, the Voting Rights Act passed, ensuring suffrage to all African Americans. But King knew racism wasn't the only social ill. He immediately sought to fight for a new struggle unfolding beyond the borders of this country, one of Vietnam. And for the next 3 years, he became extremely outspoken against the war, giving multiple speeches and shifting his focus to the global community, famously stating that an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. In fact, he became such a threat to the establishment that the U.S. government coined him, quote, most dangerous and effective Negro leader in the country. And despite MLK being constantly hailed as such an important historical figure, at the same time, the establishment was desperately trying to undermine his efforts in every way. King remained under the watchful eye of several national intelligence agencies, subject to COINTELPRO federal surveillance for years. And additionally, recently uncovered correspondence reveals that the FBI had sent Dr. King a threatening letter in 1964 urging him to commit suicide. The letter, published by Letters of Note, is a disturbing message that was accompanied by a recorded audio tape of King allegedly committing adultery. It reads, quote, "You're done. Your honorary degrees, your Nobel Prize, what a grim farce. And other awards will not save you, King. I repeat, you are done." It concludes with, "King, there's only one thing left for you to do. You know what it is. You're done. There is but one way out for you. You better take it before your filthy, abnormal, fraudulent self is barred to the nation." But even with threats from the highest levels of government, Dr. King remained committed to his path of justice for all, until April 4th of 1968, when he was assassinated by alleged culprit James Earl Ray. Yet, there are many unanswered questions about the FBI's role in Dr. King's death. Over the years, the King family's attempts for a criminal trial were repeatedly denied, even following James Earl Ray's recant of what he claimed was a false confession. But finally, in 1999, a unanimous jury in Memphis, Tennessee found local, state, and federal government agencies guilty to conspiracy to assassinate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The civil trial consisted of over 70 testimonies from witnesses who, one after the other, called into question the original narrative and concluded that James Earl Ray was nothing more than a patsy. King's wife, Coretta Scott, even stated that this jury confirmed what was already suspected by their family. She said it provided their, quote, family with a long-sought sense of closure and peace, which had been denied by official disinformation and cover-ups. Yet, even now, over a decade since that civil case, questioning James Earl Ray's guilt as the lone man who killed Martin Luther King is received as nothing more than a wacky conspiracy theory. But I guess it's easier that way, isn't it? To deny the facts rather than giving them credence. After all, putting up an MLK memorial in DC is always easier than putting MLK's real murderers on trial.